Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angry Prepper. So on today's Prepper's Movie Critique, we're going to talk about the movie Crazies. Now, this movie came out in 2010. It starred Rhoda Mitchell and Timothy Oliphant and Joe Anderson. This movie is it was good. It was a straightforward shoot from the hip kind of movie that it got you in from the beginning to the end. So it was a really good movie. It was well done. Now, as far as prepper movie critiques goes, from a prepper standpoint, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about with the movie. Now, the synopsis of the movie is there's a chemical release because of a downed plane. So a plane lands in their water source. And then on this plane, there are chemical compounds that leak out into the water source. And they're unaware of this. So the lead character, Timothy Oliphant's character, who's a sheriff in the town, he goes to investigate because he starts noticing people acting weird. And he sees the trickle effect, or the domino effect, if you will, of the behavior of people changing. So as from close to the water source down into town, he starts noticing people acting odd. So he goes investigating, and what does he do? Boom! Sees a plane at the bottom of the lake, and the plane is leaking a chemical that is unknown. That was a spoiler alert, by the way. I know I should have said that earlier, but whatever. So now the town gets a sudden visit from the U.S. government, all in chemical suits, rallying people up, or corralling people up, if you will, into a stadium to monitor them. The people who've been corralled have now been executed. You'll see that later in the movie. The movie's still a good watch. I'm not going to give any more away. Now, as a prepper, first and foremost, it would have still been a problem for us preppers because if we lived in that town, we were unaware of the water being contaminated. Now, what's going on in Ohio is everyone's aware that the water's contaminated. I don't think anybody's going to start getting crazy and acting weird, but nonetheless, it's a similar situation in the fact that their water source was contaminated. In the Crazies, they lost their minds. In Ohio, people are getting skin burns, burning eyes, pets are dying, animals in the area are dying. So there is that similarity. Plus, in Ohio, it's in the air, where in the Crazies, it's in the water. So now, that was the one problem. They were unaware of the situation. And if you were a prepper in that town, you'd be unaware too. So there was actually no way of getting around it. Now, not everybody was infected. So there were people who were able to deal with whatever the chemical compound was and move on. Next problem was the being corralled into a makeshift stadium or bullpen, whatever you want to call it. Here's where, guys, again, you see government officials show up in your town unannounced in biochemical suits. It's on. And there is no talking with them. There is no, come on, man, could you please let me go? There is no talking with them. It is 0 to 60 time, guys. It's called the get some hour because you're not going to get out of that situation without a gunfight. You're not going to talk your way out of the situation without a gunfight. You are unfortunately going to have to get into it. And I know it sounds cold and callous, but when they show up unannounced, this shit is on. Now, if you are a responsible human being and you're a responsible American and you realize that you might be contaminated and you might be infected, then you might have to do the right thing and forfeit your rights to live so that you don't spread it to anyone else. That is the right thing to do. But if you are 100% sure you're not infected, game on. Now it's time to rock and roll, right? So that's a prepper response. And the other prepper response is to hide. You see them coming. All right, everybody, down into the up into the attic or down into the floorboards. Wait till they search the house. Then we pop up, get our shit, and leave. You can do that as well. But unfortunately, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have to get into the fucking get down mode and make sure you and your family get out of there. But now you have to understand this. If you are infected, if a family member is infected, you can't leave. Unfortunately, you have to stay put, and you guys have to die. It's that simple. When it's something that serious, guys, I think that the responsibility for us, like if I was infected with some fucked up disease that was going to kill half of humanity, I would stay put, right? Especially if I'm symptomatic. Now, clearly, if I'm not symptomatic, I'm going to wait around. I'm going to wait a couple of hours. I'm going to wait a day or two. I'm like, all right, I'm not symptomatic. I'm out of here. But if I am symptomatic, unfortunately, I'm not going to be responsible for half the world dying because I want to live. right? Or I want to get out of the situation. I clam up. But I would handle it my way. I wouldn't let the government handle it their way. Absolutely not. I'm not going to be a guinea pig, and you're not going to keep me around to see how I fucking break down. I'm going to fucking take the lead and end it myself. Now, here's the other problem that I should have talked about before. The water being contaminated. What are you going to do? Well, obviously, guys, if you found out the water was contaminated before you were drinking that water that was supplying your town, bottled water, filtered water, or rainwater, right? Rainwater meaning rain barrels. That's the water sources you're going to have to go with if it came down to that point. Bottled water, I know a lot of people are like, I wouldn't trust bottled water. You don't have a fucking choice at this point. You do not have a choice. I know that like the Ohioans that are out there, they're like, I wouldn't trust bottled water. You don't have a fucking point. You don't have not a point, sorry. You don't have another choice. That's what you're left with. Yes, bottled companies are fucking son of a bitch, especially Coca-Cola water bottling division. They think that water is a right and not, it's not a right. Sorry, it's a privilege. This is coming from a Coca-Cola guy a few years back, almost 10 years ago. He stated that water is a privilege, not a right. So keep that in mind when our water sources keep getting contaminated, and Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and the rest of them who are bottling our water are going to start making it a privilege. Therefore, what comes with a privilege, guys? Fucking licenses, permits, permission, all that bullshit. But that's a different story for a different day. Now, that's what you're left with in a situation like that where the water's contaminated, like in the movie The Crazies. Now, here's the rough part. In the movie in the Crazies, guys, you live in a small town like that, you pretty much know everybody. Unfortunately, you're going to have to get into the get-down mode with your neighbors, maybe your family members, and your friends. Because if they start acting irrational like that in the movies, they start becoming barbaric, they start becoming violent, you're only left with one choice. Two choices, run or fight. Now, clearly, if it's your neighbors and your friends, and you know them really well, you might run. You might choose the path of running. But if your back's against the wall in your corner, now you're going to have to fight. Now you're in the get-down mode, and that's the only thing left between you and that fucking vehicle that you're going to get in and drive is your friend who's acting irrational with a gun or an axe or a chainsaw or some shit. You're going to have to fight through that. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to suck it up and dispatch a lot of motherfuckers if you have to get out of that situation. So that's, again, a prepper thing, right? Because now you're sitting there, you identify what's going on, you're like, shit, dude, this shit's getting hot. We gotta get the fuck out of here. Now, hopefully you gotten out of there before you got to that point where you have to start dispatching people. But if you don't have to, leave. Get the fuck out of there. Now, there was a scene in the movie I thought was really fucking good. This scene was on point. There was a scene where people from the town came in with their pickup trucks, ran a gate because the people of the town were being corralled into this camp. And the people and the, if you will, the hillbillies or the rebels of that town said, fuck this, you're not corralling our people. Took their pickup truck, got into a gunfight with the soldiers. I think they all wound up dying, but still, they fought back. I thought that was pretty cool because that's what happened. Now, initially, when you watch the movie, from the aspect of when I watched it when I was a little younger, I was like, oh, what are they doing? They're spreading the virus. But that's to be expected in a small town. People are going to fight back. And that was a good thing, but it also could be a bad thing because they would also help this thing spread. Now, being that it was chemically induced, I don't think there's any spreading in the sense of them coughing, biting, licking you, any shit like that. But still, it was a very good, it was an unknown thing, and they weren't sure how it was spreading. So, again, chemically induced is less likely to be spread by any other way other than you drinking that water. But I don't think the guys who ran the gate knew that, and I don't think the military guys keeping people corralled in those fences knew that either. Right? So anyway. All right, guys. Thank you for watching this. This is another Prepper movie critique. I will have more. I do think these are a little fun to do, and these are fun to entertain. And Monday morning quarterback when you watch some of these movies. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.